Hello, my name is Izzy. I'm a junior at ETHS.
My name is Ellie. I'm a freshman at ETHS.
And we are here with
Darlene Cannon, second ward candidate.
Awesome. We're going to start out with a chill question. Darlene, how did you get here today?
Well, because I drove, because I live the farthest in the ward. I live almost to Skokie.
Oh my.
I'm on Dempster, 2 blocks east of McCormick. So that's the only way to get here, is by car.
Yeah. All right.
We're going to continue with a more personal question.
Okay.
Everyone has special traits and gifts they can use to change the world. Thinking about your skills and strengths, what is your climate action superpower?
I don't know if I have a climate action superpower, but I think that, so when I do learn about new things in regards to the environment, I like to share. Even just like thinking back when people were recycling, that was a big thing. And then like I learned, I was like, you have to rinse it out. We didn't learn that in the beginning. So, just sharing information with people about conserving energy and how to be, better to the planet, I think.
So, kind of moving on from that, what are the 2 most important issues you're focused on in your campaign as a challenger?
Affordability is a huge issue in Evanston. There's a lot of talk about building high-rises, and high-rises are gonna house people who are to come. But right now in District 65, there's maybe 200 to 300 homeless families, and I don't even think 202 tracks the number of families that are housing insecure. And then outside of that, there's families who just can't afford the rent. So that is my biggest concern, is people having to pay more than 30% of their income in order to stay in a city that they probably grew up in and they love, and their ability to either make more money has gone, or they have some other obstacles that are preventing them from making more money. So that's one of my biggest things. And I guess the second thing is communication. I think that, when we go to city council, we speak, we kind of speak at them, but it's not a two-way conversation. And when we have ward meetings, again, you're speaking there's not too much of a two-way conversation because an agenda is already set, just like with city council. I think that there needs to be, talking and listening sessions, and hearing people from all the areas of the ward, hearing what their needs and their concerns are. Because we have actually all the answers to issues that we're dealing with right here in Evanston. Mm-hmm. We're just not tapped into those individuals. So, creating groups to actually engage with their neighbors and their neighbors' neighbors and their friends to build, a community and a ward coalition, I think.
Thank you. Many of the policies before City Council are future-based, like Envision Evanston, the Healthy Buildings Ordinance, and CARP. These policies will have a bigger impact on our lives than anyone else, yet youth voices are often drowned out. How will you elevate youth voices if you are elected?
Well, I think, I think that people should listen to the youth. The youth are the future. And I think that, having the youth collaborate with the older adults too, because they have the wisdom and the age. That's why I think it's really important to bring everyone together. And, everyone's not going to necessarily agree, but I think we have to be respectful of one another's perspectives, and we should listen. And I mean, fully listen to what they're saying, and how they're feeling about it, because that's important. I know people are a lot compassionate about a lot of different things. I'm compassionate about housing. I mean, it's heartbreaking that people can't afford to live here or anywhere else. So I think that, being respectful and engaging and just being decent human beings, that's what it boils down to me.
So 80% of carbon emissions come from the building sector, and a vast majority of these emissions come from Evanston's 500 largest buildings. Mm-hmm. The proposed Healthy Buildings Ordinance would mandate that these buildings make energy efficiency improvements, procure renewable energy, and reduce on-site emissions. Mm-hmm. And it has provisions to do this to ensure that this is done while maintaining affordability. Mm-hmm. Do you support the proposed Healthy Buildings Ordinance, or why not?
Okay, so it's funny that you should say that, because it's a hot topic.
It's a hot topic right now.
I just got an email from a potential constituent, and she was saying that she lived in Rogers Park, and the building that she lived in, it needed a lot of work, and there was lead paint. There was all kinds of things that she was exposed to. She was pregnant at the time. She was young. She didn't really know. Yeah. Anyway, they rehabbed the building, and as a result of that, they went up on the rent by like 20 to 30%. So I say all that to say, of course, the environment and making sure that what we're breathing now and that the earth is here in another, when you guys get my age, even, my biggest concern is that how are we going to do that and not cause a negative impact on people who are already in many ways disenfranchised. That's my biggest concern. So it's not like either or, it's both. Yeah. So how can we figure out how to do both?
And I know that you're a big proponent of climate justice, and this has to be done equitably. You can't leave anybody behind. Right. How would you suggest amending the current ordinance, or what would you like to see from in amendments?
Right. So normally I would say, maybe we could, get some grants or government funding, and work on it little by little. However, I'm not sure that those things are available right now. I'm sure that there still are grants and so forth out there. But I think that, we look at, are we saying that the buildings and that they're the biggest, they're creating the biggest negative emissions in the community, outside of like the buses or anything like that? Yeah. Okay. So I think that,
because there are pathways for alternative compliance. So if a building can show that they can't afford these upgrades, they can go to the city and create a pathway to still comply while also not having to jack up the rent on their renters.
Right. I think that, especially for like some of our landlords who are Black and brown, who provide housing for people, they provide Section 8 housing. I think that that we need to have some clear provisions written that state that they are not able to afford it. However, maybe we can work out some plans or something with banks and get low interest loans or stuff like that. And they have to commit to not raising the rents and to maintain the affordability. And we need, affordability really needs to be like until it doesn't need to have term limit. It should be until perpetuity. It's going to go up a little bit because of the cost of living, but we can't allow it to go up 30-40% and displace people. So I think, if we can see what can be done, and if there are resources, then, get those things done. But for those people who have buildings and they just don't have the resources, maybe we have other options. Maybe there will be some government grants. Maybe there's some grants,
maybe
some
next
private
administration,
right, or private from the private sector. That's
and
not
90% of the fines collected from any buildings that don't make those upgrades but can afford to pay the fines. 90% of those would go to a fund to help the buildings that can't afford those upgrades.
Right.
Make
so
their
like
upgrades.
The landlord sort of. Okay.
So there would be a redistribution of the people who, can't afford to pay it, but just choose not to, or are behind.
Right.
That money would go to the people who need it the most.
Right. Well, that makes sense.
At UTHS, we learn about the value of teamwork through sports and group projects. From these lessons, it's clear that the City Council isn't always the best example of teamwork. If elected, what can you and your colleagues do to have a more productive collaboration as City Council?
I think that people can, agree to disagree, but I think that the one thing that we should all agree about is that, we love Evanston, and we want to make sure that the quality of life for the Evanston residents is the best, the best possible, So I think from there, we kind of deconstruct what, the differences are. And then you come together with a happy medium. And, sometimes, there's ward-centered issues. So if it's a development or something that's happening in the second ward, I would speak to my colleagues about feedback that I've gotten from residents. And then I would also speak from the perspective that, I've lived in the second ward my whole life. So I think about long-term impact that it would have on the ward, and whether it's negative or positive. And I would hope that my colleagues will be respectful of that and support me either for or against an issue that could be positive or could be negative in the ward. So that's how I look at it, that it's collaboration, breaking things down, and just going back to, because people are going to disagree, but going back to the fact that we love Evanston and that we want the best for this community and for the residents, and that even though I would be representing people in the second ward, I still look at it like I would be representing everyone in the job doesn't end outside the boundaries of the second ward. It's representing all the residents and ensuring that their safety is top priority.
Is there anything else you'd like to add? Anything else you want to talk about? You have the floor.
Let's see. So you guys know, I grew up in the second ward, and I used to walk past the waste transfer station every day. I worked at Burger King when it was down the street, and I kept thinking, like, why is there a waste transfer station in the middle of a neighborhood? And I think whoever decided to sign a contract for them to have one, like they could stay there like indefinitely. I think that there was no thought or concern about the impact that it was having on the community. And you know, I live off of Dempster, and Dempster is a state highway, and there are trucks going at 5:30 in the morning, and there's emissions going early in the morning too. And you know, I think like living in like I mean, I can't speak for people who live in the fifth ward, but in the second ward, you know, it's not when you live that close to the, you know, the state highway, and then you have the waste transfer station, and then being that close to ETHS, because there's a lot of traffic coming and going all day long. It, you know, it affects your, you know, your life, you know, because there's really not too much downtime, and a lot of times I work from home, and I know that at 3:00 I have to be in the house because school's out at 3:30. People are parking up and down the street. There's kids. I mean, kids coming and going. There's a lot of activity, and then there's a lot of cars. So while the cars are like turning and everything, then there's a kid on the bike, kid on the scooter. There's a whole lot of activity going on at the same time. And I just wish that there was a safer, because I don't, as a driver, feel safe driving at 3:30 at Lake and Dodge, because, you know, I don't, you know, like I don't want to hit a kid on a bike or anything like that. But, you know, people are going, I don't know, I just feel like the way it's set up right there, and then there's houses, and then there's traffic. It's just a combination for a disaster. And so I don't really like it, you know, like obviously, you know, it's good to see, you know, like if you're sitting back or you're walking, it's good to see the kids, you know, moving around. I can hear the band. And, you know, all of the activity that's going on. But as far as like safety wise, I don't think that it's, to me, I don't think it's like safe. That's just my perspective. Yeah. But you know, I'm really glad that, you know, people are concerned about the waste transfer station. I just kind of feel like it's like 20, 30 years like too late of people living, and the demographics in the neighborhood have changed, you know. But as, you know, I've talked to people who live there now, you know, I hear horror stories of ginormous rats, how people can't grow any produce in their backyards. On the east side of like Darrow, I hear from people who live in the townhouses over there that they spray something on the garbage to control the odor, and whatever it is, it makes her, this lady, sick. And she said she can't open her window but late at night. And I don't think that anybody should have to live and not be able to get fresh air, you know. So those types of things are disturbing. You know, I serve on the NAACP. We have a environmental board with Andrew Weimer, and we applied for the grant for $350,000 to actually test the air quality. And I'm really excited about that, because I want to test the air quality right by my house, you know, and because, you know, there's traffic coming and going all day long. So, I mean, I'm glad that something is happening now. I wish that something would have happened when I was a kid, you know.